Alrighty. So this is going to be kind of a build overview of the Bloodmage physical crit spell character that I've been playing from the start of early access. I went all the way through the campaign and into maps, and it's kind of crushed everything so far. Really the only things we've struggled with have been the Ascendancies, a little bit of struggle with the third one, and then a little bit more struggle with the fourth one. But other than that, it's kind of destroyed everything. It's great at just about everything that I've been able to see. So here's a quick overview of the tree, and we'll go do some gameplay. Just to show you what the mapping looks like, do a little bit of bossing. And let's see, let's go for a tier 15. Throw some mods on it. And so that one looks pretty good. -10 max player res. It's really the only scary one. So let's see, this one has a boss and +1 level, so that's a good. So monster level 80, tier 15. I'll run this real quick. Let's see here. I've been swapping out these gloves, trying to see which ones are better. I think we'll just leave this one on for now. Alright, so clearing spell is Bone Cave. My right click. It's linked to Spell Cascade and the other one, Arcane. Astral Projection. Make it where I can cast it instead of just around the body. And then we have Inspiration and Life Cap to reduce the cost of it. So you can see my health dipping a little bit when I'm using it. And part of that is the cost of the spell because of Life Cap, and part of it is this glove that I've got on that makes me sacrifice health. Energy shield is kind of tapped out pretty well. And then you'll see as I'm killing these guys, now that was rare, I didn't get to use my single target skill against them. Kind of just died. Kind of the flow of the gameplay is you kill one thing in a pack, and then you see this corpse, and you just detonate dead. Detonate dead murders everything, including rares, especially if it crits, but even if it doesn't crit, it does an absurd amount of damage. It scales based on the life of the corpse. So even if you're running a map that's like 70% more monster life, detonate death is still every once in a while you run out of corpses. That can be a little dangerous. Luckily you have a bunch of other skills. We don't. So we're just clearing here, we got some bones. Looking for the rares in the map. One of the things you'll notice is I'm kind of a little bit fast, and that's because I have momentum, mobility, whatever it is, linked to my Well, fuck. That ruins the whole video now, doesn't it? Let's try again with a different map. I don't even know what that was that killed me. I'll have to go back and look. Here's a tier 15. Let's corrupt it. And see boss there. See boss. See boss. Get on. Oh, see, here's something here. Oh, nice, my boss. I'll just do over here. Oh, battery. Let's not do that battery. I'll give it a try. Monster level 81. I do have the Atlas tree nodes that add modifiers onto corrupted maps, so one of these will not have been on the Waystone. We got more rares, 2 extra proges, which is scary. Reduced damage from crits, which is particularly painful for this build. Other than that, should be an easy map. Got one shot by something like that. So let's see, where was I? So clearing with Bone Cage. We tap Detonate Dead on corpses, do a lot more damage. If there's a very tanky rare, we can use this skill, and usually 1 or 2 shot it for that. Bone Storm, I think it's called. If there's low health units like this guy, we can execute it. Lightning Warp gives us some movement options as well. And then on bosses, we use this. I don't know what this is called. Hive Renter. It adds crit weakness, which is base crit, which is extremely good. Especially when your crit chance is lower, like early on in the campaign, early levels. You definitely want to add this as soon as possible. Helps you clear bosses much quicker. Let's see. So here's one. There he goes. There's another. Should have a corpse here. And I'm generally in like a pack. I'm kind of looking to kill one thing, get a corpse, blow up the corpse, and then chain detonate heads. Especially useful when your bone cage is not quite as high damage. Like mine is. I've got this thing 6 ranked up, and it's just really crushing everything right now. But as you're going through the campaign in early maps, it doesn't quite do as much. So you use bone cage to kill one thing, and then you detonate dead the rest of the mobs. And they'll take care of rares, everything. Find the rest of the rares in this. Alright, there we go. Finally got the rares to show up. So we have 2 to the right and then a boss to the left. Go back down. Pick up these rares. We also have Blink attached to our persistent buff. So it changes our dodge roll and teleport as a quick cooldown. Very handy for clearing terrain and getting out of situations, especially ones that are completely surrounded. The dodge rolls is not normal to be able to do. So it's very handy, especially for a build like this that doesn't have like damage reduction. You just have like a whole lot of energy shield and a ton of life. We don't actually have, you know, armor or evasion to help us deal with packs. So our defensive strategy against packs is to just kill them or be far enough away from them that they don't hit us. And generally it feels pretty safe unless you're I think one of the things that kills this is like a pack of projectile monsters that just chain stun you. That can be pretty dangerous, or like extra freeze when you know, misposition to. So boss time. Here's what we do. We'll get the crit weakness up, and then a couple of these. This was a plus 1, 2, 3. A plus 3 boss. So each one of these makes the bosses much tankier. They get new spells and abilities. So a lot of people, when they're doing the campaign, from what I hear, they will avoid taking these points just so they can get the boss points without the difficulty of the bosses, but I haven't really felt the need to do that for a majority of the bosses. There are some bosses that are just a little dangerous for this build. Inventory management. Let's see, is that it? Yeah, that's it. Some nice build. Alright. So that was the map.
Go on.
I'm going to get rid of this stuff.
It'll be you. Waiting.
Alright, and let's kind of go over... I guess let's start with the skills. So you saw most of them during the map there. We have Ball Lightning. This is really our, we don't really use it except for like traversal. So this is on our second weapon set. We use it to like go a little faster. We need to cover a lot of distance. The problem is you have to swap weapons, so there's a little bit of delay. So it's oftentimes too dangerous to use, but that's there. Lightning Warp, this is our execution ability, and a little bit of repositioning. We have Unleash, lets it execute several units that are in cult range. Shock Siphon, Soul Drain, and Execute for a little bit more damage, but Shock Siphon and Soul Drain to get some energy shield and mana back. Blink is our blink spot. It just has reduced cooldown. We have Bone Cage, and I've ordered these in terms of importance. So we have Spell Cascade. That's gives you 3. You'll notice that they do overlap, and where they overlap, units can be hit twice, which is why this is so important. because it's not only better coverage, but it's also better damage. So it's like a, I don't know, maybe a 60% more damage multiplier. Astral projection. So this, as I mentioned earlier, just lets you cast it away from the body. And then inspiration and life tap make it cheap, because if we did not have that, so this is with life tap but no inspiration, you can see it chunking my life crazy. And otherwise, it would eat up the mana like crazy. So this just lets us spam it a little bit more reliably, and then we use the leech from the Ascendancy to kind of heal stuff back up, as well as recoup and a few other things we'll go over in a minute. Temporal chains, this is just because we had nothing else to put in a curse slot, so we just have this for curse. We use cursed ground to make it last longer, and we can kind of pre-fire this, and it lets us have a little bit of like zone control. So if we're like doing something annoying like pulling a lever, I'll put this down just so if I get hit by stuff, it'll be a little bit slower to hit me. Detonate Dead. So we have Considered Casting, which just got a buff with the latest patch. This thing is huge now. 40% more damage, 15 less cast speed is fine. Magnified Effect. The AoE is important. Inevitable Critical. This is less important, but it's decent. When this thing crits, you'll notice it just obliterates everything. And then Ambush. So this I've found a little bit useful. So Ambush gives it 100% more crit chance against enemies on full life. And what I've got here, you'll see I'm at 45% crit. And that's with Inevitable Critical kind of ticking away. If I remove this, you'll see it goes down to 37 and then slowly ticks back up. And then Ambush. So if we detonate a corpse next to a full life mob, which happens fairly often, it'll have basically 90% crit chance, which is huge. And then Arcane Surge I added in. It's not necessary, but I added it in as a 6th gym link. And basically, this mostly comes up during breaches, because what I do in breaches is we just chain Detonate Dead constantly, and it eats up our entire mana bar, and then this thing kicks in and gives us a little bit more mana regen. So that's why that's there. Eye of Winter is important for our capping our crit chance against bosses for Bone Storm. So we have inflicts critical weakness on hit, which can stack up to 20 times, giving us a total of 10% base crit chance, which is important because base crit is what your increased percent crit on the tree multiplies to get your final crit chance. So once we're at like 10% base crit at 20 stacks, this thing, every hit of our abilities will crit. So we stack on Wild Shards and Ricochet, which just gives it a chance to have more projectiles. More projectiles is more hits, and more hits is more weakness. So that's why that's there. And then Bone Storm. This is our boss killer or rare killer that we can, if we don't have a Detonate Dead corpse next to a rare, we can just kind of stand back here and fire our Bone Storms. And usually 1 or 2 will kill any rare. This thing is extremely strong with crit. Let's see, we're at 70% crit chance. And we've got Demolisher. Well, let's see, this is not ordered. Let's order it like this. Probably... Yeah, so we've got Splinter is the primary one. Breaking armor equal to 15% of damage dealt. Oftentimes you will break their entire armor in 1 or 2 volleys, which is just huge. For our damage, Scatter Shot. So Scattershot makes it so that this thing charges a little faster. So I can get a full charge in just a second or so. And if you don't have Scattershot, it takes a lot longer. So Scattershot is there for just ease of use. Demolisher is probably replaced with some other like damage skill, but I was trying to avoid increasing the cost of this skill because, as you see, it kind of drains a lot. That was like 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and my entire mana bar was gone. And most of the damaging support gems have like a mana multiplier on them, but you could easily swap this out for something that's like heft or brutality or something like that. And then arcane tempo just makes it so I can rapid fire these. But again, you could probably swap these out once you have enough cast speed in the build, which I do right now. Conk effect is this is a damage multiplier that doesn't have a mana cost. And the way I think this works, so our projectiles hit, and then they have an explosion that hits. And so I think this works only on the explosion part. So this is 40% more area damage for half of the skill. So it's like a 20% more multiplier, but it doesn't have a mana cost. So that's why that one's in there. And again, you could replace that with, you know, a different damaging ability or something like that. And then we have Grim Feast, which is our way of overcapping our energy shield. We kind of naturally get a ton of energy shield in this build. And so Grim Feast lets us recover above our energy shield up to, I think, 2x. So we can have potentially 8k energy shield at any time in a map. Along with, you know, we have the class ability Life Remnants, which lets us overcap our life, so we could potentially have, I think, 6,000 life at any point in the map. Which is rare because we're consuming a lot of life to use our skills. But anyway, so this one, I have a little bit of extra spirit from my amulet. You may not have, you know, gear similar to this, but we have extra spirit on our amulet, which lets us put in a few of these support gems. So I have clarity, vitality, and cannibalism. Cannibalism is pretty good. Lets us get some life back on kill, which really helps this this class. Just needs so much life gain because it just eats so much life when we use our abilities. So let's talk about ascendancies. The way I did mine, and you could argue for a different priority in ascendancies. So I took this one first. Some people choose not to take this, but I don't know. I like it a lot. Even when you're, you know, fighting bosses, because when you crit, they'll drop the blood globules or whatever, and you know, you can keep your mana costs kind of low to the point where they're almost irrelevant, and then the blood globules will heal you. Is that what they're called? What are they called? The life remnants. Yeah, so the life remnants will heal you kind of more than you spent on the cost. So this, I don't see the point to not taking this, but some people choose not to. And then I went over here for Grasping Wounds, which gives you some one-shot resistance, we'll call it. And then you combine this with some recoup on the tree, and it's fantastic. It's a great node. And then I went for Crimson Power, just to get more effective life. I think you could argue for, you know, the Leech, but this seemed to do well. I found a good... What you want is a chest with high energy shield. Then that gets added to your life. So right now I've got 700 energy shield, and with this node also gives 700 life. So that's why the, you know, huge huge stats over here on our health pool. You can also get one that had, I think I had one that had like 600 energy shield and also like a 170 life roll on the chest. That's a good option as well if you can't, you know, find something insane like this. But this was enough to get me through basically everything. I only did the 4th Ascendancy. I did this after I had finished all the maps. So I'd gotten to tier 15 maps, and then I went for the 4th Ascendancy, and it took a few tries. And then we added this in, and once we got the spell damage, leached his life, that's when I added in Demon Stitcher. So Demon Stitcher lets you heal up your energy shield by consuming your life every time you cast, which is just handy to keep your energy shield topped up. I wouldn't say it's necessary. It's definitely pretty good in high density situations where you're like casting a lot and you're also healing a lot. It's more dangerous in bossing situations where you're casting a lot and not healing quite as much. So it can kind of drain your life faster than you're able to restore it in those situations. So I also have kind of a backup gloves here, which is its Series Acuity, and it's got leech from crits is instant. So obviously you would only want this if you have your spell damage leeched as life. But this just helps you sustain your life pool against bosses, which is your more important health pool as opposed to your shield. So let's see. Anything else on Ascendancies? I think that's it. We can talk about the tree. So the tree you'll see is we lean into this side over here. The what is traditionally in POE1 the dexterity side. So we grab this crit cluster. We grab these two crit over here. And I will say that most of this, like once you get to here, this is mostly like points from maps, right? So you'll really just be focusing on this when you're leveling through the campaign. And then the way I started out was I went up through this node, taking all the damage, all the physical damage, and we went up here and got the recoup. Went up here to get this crit, and then eventually made our way over here into aiming for this crit here, but also these nodes are actually pretty good despite being like the start node of another class. So we've got a bunch of crit here, a bunch of crit here, and then some more crit damage and some stats and cast speed. Cast speed is especially handy early on, just to make things feel smooth. But defensive-wise, we are recoup, energy shield, just enough energy shield. Like the energy shield nodes are extremely good. Like these 3 points here, that's 70% energy shield. So we take those for sure. Eventually, you move your starting points out of damage into this energy shield, just because the damage points are not as relevant. And let's see. So we go over here. So the main physical specific nodes we have are these 3, these 4. So this one lets us break more armor and gives us some crit damage bonus. And then this one lets us break more armor, assuming they have some sort of ailment, which I don't think we actually have an ailment that we apply. But the percent Phys increase is pretty good. considering the rest of our tree is like pure crit. So crit. And then on our crit nodes, we prefer crit damage over crit chance. We'll be getting crit chance from our gear, and in general, the crit chance nodes just aren't very competitive. Like 10% crit chance is not enough to care about. And then our recoup helps us sustain everything. You can take this one eventually as well. Some flat percent damage just helps as a multiplier for the crit damage. And then this wheel is a little bit unique. This one is reduced cost of skills, percent reduced cost of skills. That affects life cost and mana cost, which is why I take it. You could argue you don't really need this, but the way I see it, that's a pretty big regen multiplier. When our Bone Storm costs 400 per second, right? This is, I think without this, it's like 450 per second. So this is like 50 health per second when we're casting, as a kind of vague comparator. And then we get a whole bunch of jewel slots along the way. Good. So we get a whole bunch of jewel slots along the way. And we're kind of just going for energy shield, crit damage, and then I kind of threw in freeze threshold on some of these, just because freeze was kind of hard to deal with. It's hard to deal with freeze and stun, is the problem I run into, so I got a little bit of stun threshold here, and then I have a freeze charm to deal with freeze. But the freeze charm uses 80 charges, which is a lot. So in order to kind of sustain the charm, I've gotten some freeze threshold. So we have some freeze threshold here. We need to replace this jewel, but it's got some freeze threshold. And this one's a good one. So energy shield, crit damage, and recover 2% mana. This recover 2% mana on kill is very nice, especially in high density maps. And you can actually get crit damage and crit spell damage, which I didn't realize until a little later into the game. But so this one we've got energy shield, crit damage, and crit spell damage. So this is 37% crit damage. I think our build gets something like 450 crit, 524 crit damage. So that's a 5x multiplier on all of our damage. So yeah, tree's pretty simple. Just crit, take the really close energy shield nodes, the really close recoup nodes. This AoE is very, very nice, especially for Detonate Dead. So we take that, and then we get some cast speed just to make things feel smoother. So we get cast speed here, cast speed here, cast speed here. You could also take some skill speed. You could also go around this way and get some movement speed. But yeah, fairly straightforward. Our offhand skill set is for, so yeah, it's prod speed. This is just for our lightning warp and what is this thing called? Ball lightning. So all of the prod speed we get just for ball lightning to go a little faster. I can use that to traverse some distance. So our offhand gets a little bit of prod speed here, some cast speed to make it faster. So kind of irrelevant. I wouldn't worry about that. So okay, that's a skill tree. What else do we have to cover? We got the gems. Oh yeah, we need gear, I guess. So gear, you're basically looking for plus level to physical spell skills on your wand, plus as many like multipliers as possible. This crit chance is actually really, really good. 90% crit chance is kind of huge for this build, so I would try and get this crit chance as high as possible. Get a little bit of cast speed is always nice, but this is a nice to have as opposed to mandatory. You really want the plus to skills, crit chance, and then spell damage. And then another nice to have is the damage as extra whatever. Cold is probably not the best one because you don't want to be shattering enemies because then they won't have a corpse for you to detonate. But you know, you take what you can get. Your energy shield, your focus is the same thing. You want plus to skills, percent spell damage, spell physical damage, crit chance. Very simple. Your body armor is kind of your most important armor piece. You just want it to have massive energy shield. Because you also get it as life, so resistances everywhere. You need so many resistances, my goodness. Although it's a little bit better with this patch. But so rings, you get resistance, life, cast speed. That's what you want on rings. So that's what we've got: resistance, life, cast speed. Helmet is resistances, life, crit chance. Crit chance is not as relevant, I would say. So just try and get high life, high energy shield, high resistances. Same on boots. You gotta have 30% movement speed. This game does not give you a whole lot of ways to get movement speed, so you need movement speed. So life, these are fantastic boots. High life, high movement speed, 2, top tier resistances, pretty good. And wouldn't you know it, same thing on your belt. So life, resistances. I got a little bit of chaos res here, and we got some life. Nothing special. You can always search for, like, I think a good mod on your belt implicit would be there's a belt that gives you instant, part of your flask usage is instant. That one would be pretty good. But I mean, belts are kind of hard to come by with good resistances, so those are going to be your priority. And then glove. In my case, I've made the glove the flexible slot, so you could always shift your resistances around to make your, whatever piece of gear you want to be your flexible slot. In this case, we have glove. So I have been testing out Demon Stitcher. I'm not sure I like it that much, because it does eat a lot of life, more so than, if I'm using its Series Acuity. I've noticed that I'm on 100% life like all the time with the instant leech, but my energy shield, especially in if there's a lot of monsters on the screen, the energy shield is always 0. So this kind of helps mitigate that problem at the cost of, every now and then your life dips a little lower than it should. Gets a little scary. But this does have some decent stats on it. You can do what I've done here is I corrupted a pair. So you give it an armor, whatever, jewel slot, and then you corrupt it, and every once in a while it'll add another jewel slot. And so I put in 2 5% elemental resistances to give it some reses. You can also do chaos res, but these gloves have 14 chaos res. And the amulet, so this amulet is crazy. You probably won't be able to find one quite this good. It has huge life, huge spirit, huge all spell plus level to spell skills and some recoup. So it's just insane. But really what you're looking for is the plus to all spell skills and life. And if you can get spirit, great. Probably can't. You can also get some resistances on here to kind of patch up anything missing from other places. You can also get, I think, I've tried the, what is it, the amulet, Choir of the Storms. It's kind of a reasonable damage amulet, despite it being focused towards lightning damage. So you could consider that one as a unique replacement for this. And then as the anoint, we've selected Savored Blood, which gives us more leech, but it leeches slower. I'm probably going to change this out because I don't think leech is that fantastic. But it's been fine. It's been okay. Gives a little bit of survivability. Especially with this, when our leech is instant, it negates the downside of that. The leech life slower. So that's been pretty handy. One thing I'll say about the gear is you definitely want like a focus and a wand, because I mean, so take a look at this damage here, 32k DPS. If I remove my focus, 15k. So this focus here is 100% more damage. That's insane. But yeah, I mean, I think some people probably like extra spirit so they can reserve some stuff. So maybe there's some options there. I don't know about a shield. But yeah, so focus here. I think that's pretty much it. We went over play style. We went over gems. We went over the gear. Sockets. Ascendancies. I guess we can kind of talk about Atlas. So what I've gone for is we went over here for more rare stuff, so we get more rares. We get shrines for some player power, and then we get this one, which is rare and unique monsters have 1 to 2 additional modifiers. Definitely don't take this if you're dying a lot. It makes your rares and your uniques much stronger, but the extra modifiers multiplies the amount of loot that they drop, which I like, so I took that. And then we went over here for Waystone Sustain. Not entirely sure that was worth it. But we also went over here to juice our maps a little harder. So corrupted waystones are corrupted an additional time when used to traverse a map. So we chuck a map in, a corrupted map, and then it gets corrupted another time, which can do different things. It can upgrade like the tier, it can change mods around. I don't know if I would recommend this, honestly, but basically what I do is I go into a map and I check the mods just to make sure it didn't put anything absurd on there. And then, yeah, I might change some of this around because it feels a little bit questionable to have this last point just dangling there. And then we went for, you know, bossing skills so far. So, progression is pretty good. Ascendancies, you may struggle with... Sanctum is always difficult, so I did a lot of Sanctum in POE1, and so it wasn't quite as difficult for me. The things that make Sanctum easier is this, whatever that thing's called, Blink, and this thing. You can combine this with Blink to really cover a lot of distance and kind of make up for some of your mispositioning. So I would definitely add those two things in for Sanctum runs.
Yes.
For my 4th Ascendancy point, we did ultimatums because it was easier for me to guarantee ultimatum wins than it was the Sanctum 4th, what's it called, was just obnoxious. I know I haven't even tried the boss on there because I only did one run where I got to the fourth set of trials in Sanctum, and I died to like some random mobs, despite having full honor and no negative mods and maximum honor resistance. So it was like, what's the point if I'm just gonna, if I'm gonna waste all my time going through three trials, basically perfectly, and then the fourth trial just murders me for no reason. So ultimatums are annoying because you have to run 3 ultimatums just to get the keys. I hear that it can also drop the same key twice, which means you might need to run more ultimatums. For me, it dropped 3 different ones, and then on my first attempt, I was able to beat the ultimatum trial master. He didn't seem to be that scary. He has very low damage. The real problem is if you don't have your sustain kind of figured out, you're gonna have some trouble, because he has a massive health bar, and if you're running out of mana and you're like, well, what do I do now? You're just gonna be in the boss fight for forever. But luckily, this I was able to get through it pretty easily. So that's that. Yeah, I think that just about covers it. If you have any questions related to, other skill gem options or, whatever, I haven't tried every iteration of this. I'm sure there's some really interesting things you can do. Even keeping the skill tree the same, but just swapping out some gems here and there. So, feel free to give some suggestions or ask questions, and I'll try to respond to those in a timely fashion. Other than that, good luck. Have fun. This class is not as bad as, Reddit would have it seem, or, other haters of the Bloodmage. It's pretty good. It's surprisingly tanky, and the crit nodes are insane for damage. Like you just get so much damage, you don't know what to do with it. So anyway, see you later. Good luck. Have fun. Bye.